I took also Ivan, but Ivan disappeared.
Om Namo Narayana. Om Namo Narayana. Dear friends, today I will introduce my friend Folco Terzani, a writer from Italy. He wrote a book called Barefoot on the Earth. In Italian it's A piedi nudi sulla terra. This book is about Baba Cesare. Baba Cesare was an Italian sadhu with a strange life story. He moved to India in the 1960s and stayed there for 40 years. Some people think he is a holy man, but his past has some dark parts too. This book really touched me, so I translated into Russian language, and later with Folco we did 2 audiobooks, one in Russian and one in Italian language with Italian actor Elio Germano. There is also an audio performance going on this summer and last summer around Italy, based on this book. Folco's story grabs your heart and doesn't let you stay indifferent. So I want you to meet this amazing author who told Cesare's story as if Cesare himself were speaking. I'm excited to present you Folco Terzani, and we will talk about Cesare, about this book, and about Folco's spiritual journey. Enjoy it. Om Namo Narayana.
И смог рассказать историю Чезаря от имени самого Чезаря. И представляю вашему вниманию Folco Terzani. Мы поговорим и о Чезаре, и о книге, и про его духовный путь. So, Folco, I know you for at least 10 years maybe, no? And every time we speak, I feel you have many stories, but usually you keep it maybe like your personal stories, like meeting for some special people. You put it in your books, but in the
not so much in my books either.
Yes, not so much, but maybe you can just for okay, let's do it for Russian public, no? Because it's your first interview. So can you tell some stories? How you was come inside, launched in this spiritual journey in your life? How begin your spiritual research for you? When it happened and.
I think, like many people, I wasn't very interested in it before. It was just like. I mean, the world was fine as it was, and it was interesting, and I was liked to learn things and study and go to university and live quite a rational life, and that was fine. And it's totally fine until the problems happen. And then when you start to ask, I was studying. Okay, let's begin at the beginning. I grew up in Asia, so my entire childhood till I went to university was in Asia, in China, in Japan, in Thailand, in India. So that's what I saw. That's what I saw every day in my life. So that became part of me in a way, but I didn't really pay much attention to it. And but some things happen sometimes. So when I was 11, my father took me to India for the first time with the whole family. And one day we were walking through a square and there were many people, and I really didn't like it because I wasn't used to so much poverty. I came from a different place, and there was people on the streets who were sick, and there was beggars everywhere, and people with bandages and wounds and leprosy, and I was a kid, so I just didn't want to be there. And then I saw in the middle of the square there were 3 men who were sitting there, and they had very little on. They had like less than the beggars, but they were totally calm. Whereas the beggars were always like asking for something. These men were completely serene and calm, and they actually looked like kings, not like beggars. So I said, Dad, who are those guys? And so he said, I don't know, let's go and see. So we went to see, and then we asked, and it turned out that they were sadhus, babas, who were ascetics, who live in. They lived in a cave in the jungle. That's what they said, and sometimes the tiger would come, and I was going, they live in a cave? Is it possible that people still live like that in the jungle? But when you looked at them, they were almost naked. One of them was playing an instrument that had only one string, and it was made from a coconut shell and one stick. And they had this really, really long hair, which they kept on top of their heads. And so there was something very different about them, and I thought, well, maybe it's possible that people still exist that live like that. And I thought it was great. They had no shoes, they had nothing, they had just a bit of water, and I thought it was great, but then life is different. Life goes on, and you have to keep doing what you have to do until you have a problem. And so after studying at university, I just didn't make sense to me, the world. I didn't like to do what I was supposed to do. You study, and then you can get a job, and then you can do something, and you can maybe earn well, and most of my friends did and do, but you're still doing. I couldn't find a job that I thought that if I did it, I would do good to the world. I thought anything I do is going to do more damage to the world than if I don't do anything. So it was really troubling, this situation. Like, what am I going to do if I don't want to be part of that corporation or this diplomatic service, or so they offered me a job. I could have worked for a company that made soap, and of course everybody uses soap, so you can make a lot of money selling soaps. Like, this is big international, but multinational. But I didn't want to do that, and at some point, I had the opportunity of working in the United Nations in New York in the glass palace there, because I had a very good education, and I spoke Chinese, which was unusual, so it was useful for that kind of thing. But when they offered me the job, I thought, no, I don't want to do that either. So then there was a problem. What am I going to do? And then I remembered that when I was 11, I seen these three people who were half naked in a square in India, and I thought, they were interesting. They were different. They're different from everybody else I met. And I wondered, is it true what they told me, that they lived in a cave? I mean, does that exist, that world? And so I did something quite crazy. I went to India and I went to look for, I couldn't find those three men, but other people like that. And that's how I first went to look for them again.
Do you remember how old you were in this moment when you decided to come back to India to discover this?
I think I was 27.
27.
Because usually the spiritual crisis hits around that time,
yes,
27, 29, 30,
Yeah.
Apparently, they say Jesus went to the desert when he was 30, and Buddha left his wife and child in the palace when he was 29. So that's roughly the idea where that kind of spiritual crisis comes. And so that was roughly the time when mine came. And so I went to India. And funnily enough, though, the first person I met was not a sadhu. So the first thing, I didn't know where to look, I didn't know where to find these people. I had no idea, like, in the jungle where, in the mountains where in the cave. So it took a long time to find my way into that world. But the first person I went to visit, because I thought maybe she's interesting, was Mother Teresa in Calcutta. And that was the beginning of thinking, there is another path here. There is another direction, that it exists. It's not in the book, it's not just in the books or in the stories, it's real. Here I see a person who helps people every day, other people, who's looking at other people, and all the nuns were working for other people, not for themselves, and they had nothing. So I thought, that's the opposite of everybody else. This is interesting. And it's not just a story, I'm seeing it. So I was so fascinated by what she was doing, Mother Teresa in Calcutta, that I became a volunteer there, and I worked in the house of the dying people in Calcutta for almost a year, because I was supposed to come back home, but I didn't want to come back home. I said, no way, what I'm learning here is much more interesting than anything I've ever seen. And finally, this is a teacher. Like my philosophy professors in Cambridge, I didn't think they were very interesting. I didn't think that what I had to discuss and write about was very interesting. It wasn't what I was looking for anyway. It was very theoretical. And then I saw Mother Teresa. I said, that's something I want to know more about. So I just stopped. I didn't go back. I had my return ticket to come back to Europe, and I didn't come back. And I stayed, and I started working for dying people. And that was the first step.
But it's like a practical theory.
Yeah.
What do you think she's one of your masters or one of your teachers for you?
Well, she was great. She completely surprised me. I didn't believe that somebody like that could exist. I mean, people used to say she was a saint, right? Already when she was alive, people talked about the saint. But what does it mean, a saint? Does it mean somebody who can make miracles or walk on water? I mean, did Jesus walk on water? I don't know. I have to see it. And she didn't walk on water, but she really had the opposite way of dealing with people. There was really kindness and love for the other person, and there was no violence. There was no attempt ever to force anybody, right? Because they were all nuns. There was that female quiet energy, and which was so powerful and so strange in a place like Calcutta, in front of such a strong adversary, such a strong enemy, like all these diseases and the poverty, and there was a constant attack. Every morning people were getting attacked by mice and by hunger and by just not having anything, just lying on the streets, and these sisters would pick them up and take care of them, and it was just a very strange thing to see.
Do you think can she be like a Mother Kali, because Calcutta is a city of Kali?
Yeah.
And she was like a representation of this Mother power.
Yeah.
But in Christian, but
in a Christian, but it doesn't matter exactly, Christian or not Christian. It doesn't matter.
Because the vibration is the same.
The same.
Name is changing the name, but can she be, because Mother Teresa is famous in all around the world. Kali is all,
yeah.
too. So
Kali is more violent in the way she looks.
It's in our imagination, but inside she's
good.
She's very good.
But they have a different way of presenting themselves. Let's say Kali represents herself as black and scary, whereas Mother Teresa presented herself all in white and very subdued.
But it's the external view.
It's the external.
What was inside, this was
probably the same thing. Probably the same thing. Yeah. And that was the beginning, because I saw that there were real people who did things in completely the opposite direction. You know, at university we were, obviously everybody, even at school, the training is to become better than everybody and to make it to the top. And when you make it to the top, you have more and more things. That's just how that's normal, that's what you learn. And Mother Teresa was the opposite. She wanted to go down to the bottom, not be in some conference room with people in suits, but to be among people who were dying on the streets, and to give all her time and to receive no money, to live extremely simply. I mean, her idea was to have less and less rather than more and more. And that's what was so spectacular, because even though I know Italy well, and I come from here, and we have the Vatican and everything, but looking at it as a boy, I always thought, it's kind of rich, that place. It's kind of big, that place, right? What's that exactly got to do with the stories in the sacred book? And when I saw her, she was the same as the book. She lived the same poverty. Actually, she wasn't talking about it, she was just doing it. She didn't even talk very much. So that was the beginning of thinking that was interesting. And then she died.
You personally, how many deaths of people you assist personally?
Well, kind of quite a few, because that was the job there. It was the house for the dying in Calcutta, and it was the first place that Mother Teresa had ever founded. The first house that she made was this. She found a person who was dying on the street, and she was a nun. She was just a normal, ordinary nun, but she took the person and says, I have to save them. This is what I'm supposed to do, right? I'm supposed to help my fellow people. And she brought him to the hospital, and the hospital wouldn't take this person. And she brought him to another hospital, and the other hospital wouldn't take this person. So then she put him in a place, and she said, I'll take care of this person. And since she had one, then she took another, and then another, and suddenly she made her first house for dying people. So our job there was to help people die and to give them food if maybe they would survive, and just to be close to them. It wasn't really to cure them because we weren't doctors. It was just to support them in the last days. So every day people were dying in that place.
But how to say, in your hands,
Yeah,
somebody was dying.
yeah,
You
yeah,
used to
yeah,
keep somebody for a hand, and this person was going away.
yeah.
And what
Yes.
do you feel in this moment?
I think when it happened the first time, it was the strangest thing that ever happened to me, because it's the strangest mystery of life. I mean, what is death? You know, we suddenly appear in this world. It takes like 9 months to appear in this world. Slowly and then we're suddenly here. But death happens in 1 second, right? So what's strange is that I was holding this person, I was holding their hand, and he was just lying there. And for a long time, he was breathing, and I was there and just not saying anything. And then from one moment to another, this person who I'd known because I'd washed him and I'd fed him for days before and I'd had some interaction with, he was suddenly gone. But I was still holding on to him. So I was holding his hand, but everything that was important about that person was gone from one moment to the next. But the body was there. So what went away? My mind immediately thought, what happened? What happened? He's here. What went away in 1 second? Where did it go? And the minute you feel that, you start to, nobody explained it to me, but I had a strange feeling that there was something else. There was a soul. And the soul must have gone away and flown out of the window. I don't know, but it was there, all the memories. Everything was there a few seconds before, and then suddenly it's gone. Where did that stuff go? And when you think that there is a soul, when you start to see that maybe there is this other thing, you realize that this body is not very important, because now I had to take the body, clean the shit, sometimes they shit when they die, wrap it up in a white cloth and bring it to the burning grounds to get burned. So the body gets burned and it's finished, but the person, it seems like the most important part of the person was the soul and not the body. It's what went away, not what stayed. And so then, if that's true, then your priorities in life change, right? Because usually it's like taking care of the body, and suddenly, of course you've got to take care of both, but hang on, this thing that I never believed in, which is a soul, probably exists. And this was the incredible lesson of the Mother Teresa's Home for the Dying. And that's why when people went to her, she would often, to me, she said, you know, I tried to ask her what to do, and I was feeling depressed in life. Everything was fine with my life, but I didn't feel I was inside my life, right? I didn't believe in that life, so I didn't know what to do. And she said, don't ask me too many questions, go and work with the dying people. And I went, I'm like an intellectual. I'm a person who reads and goes, I can't work. And then I said, okay. And then the next day I went to work with the dying people. But it was extremely hard for me to do things like that. I had never done nothing close to that. I don't like to touch, you know, if someone drinks from a glass, I don't like to drink from the same glass. So to touch people who have open wounds is a problem. But then it's like you go crazy and you go on the other side. You go mad and you become the opposite. So afterwards, every time somebody did diarrhea, I would be the one to ask to clean it. Why? I don't know. But it was just like, I wanted to go as far as possible on the other side suddenly.
So you meet your fears.
Yeah. You go towards your fears, which is, everyone tells you that's what you should do, right? But it's not easy to do. It's rare that you do it. You do it when you can't do anything else. I mean, you want to avoid it. Then if you really have to meet your fears, then okay, let's try.
So it means your research was really strong, because if you do this step in such a young age, I mean,
I was 27 though.
Yes, 27, it's young man. 25 is still teenager, you know. So it means inside of you some, like say in Italian, tarlo, no?
Some worm
was moving.
There was a worm moving, yeah.
Otherwise I don't
I think
see
that's
the reason
Yeah.
one man after Cambridge.
No, there's no reason. But I think the reason is simply that many of us are just tired of that other life. It doesn't mean anything to us. It seems wrong. It seems wrong to produce more things. It seems wrong to be part of corporations that you don't believe in. How can you do a job your whole life if you don't think it's right, if you think it's working for the other side? So you've got to try to find some solution to that question.
So do you think the death is real?
It's real and it's not real. I mean, it's pretty real when it happens, and then presumably things keep going somewhere else, right? But
so you believe in reincarnation?
I think these are all different words and ideas to try to explain something that has no explanation. It's just beyond us.
But what is your idea? What is because you was worked with people who dying.
Yeah.
And you have practical experience, practical knowledge how it happens. But what you understand for yourself about all this death and life? What is this? There is a difference, or maybe it's only.
I think that's a difficult one. I mean, I think that's the hardest. That's the biggest. That's the mystery of mysteries. So we can only be poetical and use beautiful words to try to talk about it, like a flower in the night or whatever we want to say. But it's really impossible to have a clear idea about it. And I think if we do have a clear idea about it, we're probably wrong.
But do you believe if this trip never ends?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very strange if we're dying and everything, nothing, just soul somewhere in the sky.
It probably comes back, you're right, of course. I mean,
trip, because sometimes you meet somebody, you feel, this person, maybe I meet before, maybe so good connection, no?
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens, we feel this kind of hard connection, no? And probably this is the explanation of this story of reincarnation from life to life.
I think reincarnation's a really good story. It's one of the best. I love it. It's a great story. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's right or not right. I have a sense, having worked with quite a few dying people, that something leaves, something stays. What stays becomes earth. What leaves goes, we're not sure where. Maybe in outer space somewhere, or some other. It's just beyond our understanding. And like everything in the universe, probably comes back. Everything is recycled and goes around. So,
but in the moment when our time is finished, no, you know how to be, how one person should to be in this moment, to be ready. Because we don't know, this mystery of the death is you don't know when it happens. Maybe today, you know, so we don't know nothing. This is the only one thing we don't know nothing. So, but looking for people who dying in this Casa dei Morenti, do you understand the best way to go away? Or maybe
yes, no, that's it's interesting because actually. The people who were dying in Mother Teresa's home for the dying, who were the poorest of the poor, because if you're dying on the streets, it means nobody is looking after you, nobody cares for you. It means that you've been doing this for 2 weeks and nobody's given you anything, right? You've been doing something, but it hasn't worked, and you're dying now. Nobody's helping, so you're really at the end. What was
how if you understand for yourself the best way to be ready in the moment to pass away?
These people were very, very good at dying, very good at dying, because whereas we're generally quite bad at dying, and nobody wants to die, and everybody's holding on and living.
Taboo. It's taboo in society to speak about this.
It's taboo to speak about it, and I think even our old people find it very difficult to die. They want to live longer and longer and longer, even if their lives aren't very interesting, and maybe they spend the last years of their lives watching television and getting fed by somebody else who has to feed them. It's not that natural anymore. and we're taking lots of pills to keep going and going, right? Whereas these people had lost so much that they were able to let go, there was almost joy. There was an ecstasy that would happen when they died, because in a way they had suffered in this life, and maybe they believed that in the next they might come back better.
Because this is people who practice something spiritual in their life. Everybody, because in India everybody practice something.
Yeah.
Even purest of purest people, they do their devotion act every day, maybe, no?
Yeah.
So they have kind of religion inside, or they believe in this in God, and then
they believe a lot in God. They have a strong idea of God in India. The idea of God is strong in India. It's not really strong.
So maybe the spiritual path is need for people who are looking for spiritual path is to be ready, simply to have this secure in the last moment.
Yeah.
Because doing these practices, no, you slowly will understand something more, no? Because spiritual knowledge is it's a special kind of knowledge, no?
Yeah.
You can only feel it by yourself, no?
Yeah, yeah.
If somebody tell it to you, it's well, so nice story. Thank you very
story.
much.
It can make you interested.
Yes.
Reading a book, seeing a film can make you interested, but it doesn't make you understand it. You have to do the...
Yes. So if you have this knowledge, thanks to the practice, maybe meditation or making different rituals, and with kind of belief and bhava, no, they call it bhavana, no, can help you in this last minute, last day of your life to be ready and pass away happily. Even you have suffered, but if you believe, it can help you or not. What do you think?
Probably. Let's see what happens. We don't know what I mean, I've seen many other people die, but I don't know what it's going to be when I die, and if I'm going to be able to do it well. I saw my father do it extremely well, and it was interesting to watch him face it so directly. And he said he wanted to die laughing, and he succeeded. And it was great to see. Maybe you have to be just brave and put on a strong face, but it's still interesting to see somebody not suffer, not bow in front of death, not be afraid, but say, I'm ready.
Because also your father, he was assisted for many deaths, and even some people was ready to shoot him in Vietnam. No, he was journalist.
Yeah.
And he was meet the death, and when he meet the death, he began to laugh. I remember this story.
That's right.
It saved him, no?
It saved him, yeah.
You can understand what
he says when somebody points a gun at you, you should laugh.
Yes.
Because then it diffuses the situation, and then maybe you can understand. And he had saved himself like that once, so he...
And that's why because he was a good writer, so he can write this about that. And many people begin to follow him, because when they put this question, for some reason, maybe some health problem, cancer and everything, they have to affront this situation with somebody from the family or friends, and reading from the books of your father, they understand something more. So he became like a mediator for such situation and for these people. That's why he's so respected so many people read his books. He's for me, he's like Leon Tolstoy, and kind of this kind of...
I think he liked Tolstoy a lot,
thinking, no?
Yeah, that kind of thinking, that kind of thinking. High thinking. And then not just thinking, but then doing. That was what was interesting, because then you first have to think, but then you have to do it. So I was very curious when he was dying if he was going to be able to do it, to die so calmly. And he did it, and he said he did it. But what was interesting was that he said he could die well because he had lived well. So it means that even the spiritual knowledge is not just for dying, it's also for living this life. For living a life that you believe in, that you're inside, that you think, this is my life, this is not somebody else told me to do this and I don't want to do this. This is what I feel, these are the questions that I have. I mean, since I was a boy, I was curious about life and death and all these questions, but then I didn't find the answers in studying philosophy at university at all. Whereas sometimes traveling around the world and meeting strange people and people like Mother Teresa, and definitely meeting later the sadhus in the Himalayas, I started to feel, oh, there's other people that are brothers. They look totally different from me. I mean, I was dressed with a jacket and, you know, shoes and a white shirt. I was making a documentary.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah. I was, you know, you come from a certain situation. You gotta making a documentary. You know.
Yeah.
So my way of hiding that I was searching was that I was making a documentary about the search. So I had a camera and the crew, a little bit like you now, right? Which is like, you show up with a camera and then you ask questions that you really want to know the answers to. And that's how I met a lot of wonderful people who I really enjoyed being with. And I suddenly felt, oh, these people are brothers. I can get on with them perfectly. And then slowly, as the documentary continued, I didn't want to film anymore. And then I put away the cameras and I just stayed with them.
After you read the book.
And then I wrote a book because I had to write it. You got to do something. So I wrote a book. Yeah, I wrote a book. That was. You see, when I went to India looking for the Babas, I was looking for the people that I'd seen when I was 11 years old. And I wanted to find that kind of person, but I didn't know where to go. So I went traveling around India with two friends, just around to ashrams and anywhere. And I would ask, I didn't want to meet the people in the temples and I didn't want to meet the philosophers. I wanted to meet the people who lived in the jungle away from everything. But how do you find those people? So everywhere I went, I would ask if there were these Babas around, ascetics, anybody living out. And once I arrived in a place called Hampi, and I went to the bookshop, and I didn't want to buy a book. I already read many books, but I wanted to ask if there was any Babas around, and they said yes. There's one who lives on the other side of the river. So I thought, oh my God, finally, you know, this is something I've been looking for a long time. So we got a boat. And we crossed the river and we went to the other side, and there was rocks everywhere, and we were walking through the rocks and going ahead and ahead. And then suddenly I saw a little orange flag just out in the middle of nowhere, and I went closer and there was a cave. And inside the cave was a fire, and behind the fire was this wonderful man, straight, dry, with a huge crown of hair on his head, like covered in ash, sitting beautifully. And I went, oh, finally I found again the men of the jungle. And so he sort of gestured to me to sit and I was like amazed. I was in this cave. It's such a beautiful place, so silent, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, gosh, I just wish I could speak to this man and ask him so many questions. But I don't know Hindi. I could speak Chinese, I can speak 6 languages, but I didn't speak Hindi. So I didn't know what to do. And so I just sat there and I was thinking, oh, I want to ask him questions. And then I said, I saw him, he was talking to some other people who came and went. There were Indians coming around and he was speaking to them. And so, but then I heard his accent was a little bit strange, and then I said, Baba, where are you from? In English. And he said, Italy. And I went, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. So this man who looked completely Indian, who looked like, I finally found the Indian ascetic in the cave, he was Italian. And so that was like, for me, that was like, you know, if you're a writer, that's the beginning. Because you have a doorway into your story. And then I was fascinated and I said, wait, okay, so can I ask you a few questions? And he said, well, why don't you stay? And I said, stay where? He says, well, here in the cave. And I went, in the cave? Like, I'm going to sleep here? Like, what are we going to do if we sit in the cave? And he says, we wake up in the morning and you say hello to the sun. And then when the sun goes away, you say goodbye to the sun. I thought, great, that's exactly what I want to do. That is perfect, I thought. That is exactly what I'm looking for. That's something that's completely crazy and I love it. It's so simple and it makes sense to me that I have to just relate to the sun. But I looked at the cave and there was a scorpion and ants and I thought, I can't do this. It's too difficult for me to live like this. So I thanked him very much and went away. And I didn't see him again for years. But he was in my head. And then years later, I heard that there was a Baba had come to Italy who was an Italian Baba who lived in India. And I thought, I wonder if it's the same man who I met many years ago in India. So I went to find him, and when I met him, it was the same man. So I said, okay, wait a minute, now come here, let's talk. And he was really nice, and he loved to come here because this is a beautiful place, and he likes to live in nature and things. And he made this place. He made a hole in the ground here and lit the fire here. And you think, so that's not great for like two weeks of giving him food and lodging, right? Just a piece of mud. But this piece of mud is the most precious thing I have, because this fire here allows me to sit outside and makes me sit outside so much. And when I sit there, I can see the sun rising there and going around and setting there. And you feel the movement of the earth and the universe. So this piece of mud is incredibly important. And you can stay here at night when it's cold and you warm yourself by the fire. And he made it many, many years ago, and I've kept it every day. I put
How
new
many
mud.
years ago?
Gosh, probably 10 or more, or I'm not really sure. Probably more than 10 years ago. But it's still going strong. And so this man was living in this cave in India, and he was Italian, and I wanted to know, how did he get to that place? How did it happen that a normal person can end up in a cave, living like that? And so I was the book that we then wrote, because what I did is I simply recorded what he said, and then I organized it, and it became a book, which is called Barefoot, because this was one of the first things that I'd noticed about these ascetics, was that they didn't wear shoes. And that was weird, right? Because, I mean, even poor people usually have some sort of flip-flops, but they don't wear shoes on purpose. And I thought, why don't you want to wear shoes? I mean, it's comfortable. And one answer was, when you walk into a temple, you take off your shoes. At some point, you understand that the whole world is a temple, so you walk on it without shoes. And I found that this trick of walking without shoes, not always, I mean, I don't like to walk without shoes when I'm in the city. It's embarrassing, everybody looks at you. But when I'm here, I'm always without shoes. I even go up in the mountains, I go running. I run marathons without shoes. I do everything without shoes.
We did it together.
Yeah, no, very, very good at running marathons without shoes. But in the city, if you go to the bank or the supermarket, I always wear shoes. I look normal, and there's no point creating because people think it's really weird. I mean, if you don't have a hat, or if you don't have gloves, or everything's fine. But if you don't have shoes, people think you're nuts. So it's easier just to wear something. But I've noticed that this thing about not wearing shoes is one of the easiest things you can do to begin on some kind of spiritual path. It's such an easy action. And it's such a, you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to add anything. You have to take something away. That's the first thing you do. Not have something, not even have a rosary or a hat or a picture of somebody. Get rid of something. And getting rid of your shoes is very interesting, because it suddenly puts you in direct touch with the earth. And you feel it, and you start to, have this sense of this stuff, right? Look at it. It's so beautiful. It's like a skin. It's like a brown skin.
Yeah,
this is just pure earth here. And this is where the grass grows like hair on the earth. And it's such a great thing. And when you touch it, it gives you energy and you become connected. When I think that nowadays, like probably the greatest real problem that we have, it's not the wars and that. The real problem that we have is our relationship with nature now. And we're risking a lot because we're out of balance with it. So we keep trying to get close to the planet, the earth, nature again. And we keep trying to study it. But there's nothing to study. We just have to, it's like our mother, right? And what do? You study your mother at university? No. You hug your mother, you touch your mother, you sit close to her. So the best thing to do, the quickest thing to do, if you want to start changing direction, is take your shoes off. walk around, feel the earth, get close to it, Yeah, I found that this was one of the most interesting things that,
Wait a second. No, okay.
Many people wonder, how do you begin a spiritual path, or how do you change direction if you want to change your life, and it's really difficult usually to come up with a solution. But actually I found one thing that is really simple. You take your shoes off. It's such a basic action, which instead of adding skis or adding a hat or adding a rosary or a picture of a guru or whatever, you take something away and you take your shoes off. And what it happens is that you touch the ground, and if this is our mother, how are we supposed to study her? In university, in books? No. We're supposed to touch her, we're supposed to be close to her. And the ground we usually don't touch with our hands, we touch with our feet. So when you take your shoes off, you feel close to this thing. You don't feel like you're trying to protect yourself. Like, why have we spent, because we didn't used to be like that, but for the last few hundred years, we insist, and especially in the last 100, in putting a rubber thing between us and our mother. We try to keep away from her all the time. We spent our entire lives distant from the earth. Whereas there's nothing more pleasurable than feeling it, right? It's so nice just to feel this thing under your feet, because we shouldn't protect ourselves from it. I mean, of course, the earth is also dangerous, but the earth gave us life like any mother. So we shouldn't be afraid of it. We have to be close to it.
What do you think, Folco? What this wave of big interest, maybe last 50 years in the Western world, to spirituality, to nature, no? Maybe it's a sign, because the society is looking for, in this moment, no?
Yeah.
We speak about our planet, our mother, no? But outsiders looks like they do everything to destroy it, our environment. So that's why I personally see, because I just come back from Kumbh Mela, and I saw there was a lot of foreigners, especially Italian people and Russian people. Maybe most Russian and Ukrainian people, no? But a lot of, in our camp it was 50-50% Russian and Ukrainians and 50% Italians. So these two countries was most present in this
Interesting.
gathering of the supermarket of spirituality. So, but what my question is, do you think the people now my idea is what some critical mass of people who make spiritual practices or inner research should to be arrived, should to be grow, just to keep this planet safe for the future. Because if this technology and industrialization comes forward, we will destroy very quick.
Probably. We don't really know. We never know what's going to happen in the future. And I think if we think too much about the world, we're going to get depressed. Like, if you think about big problems, you never find a solution. So the one good thing to do, and this was a nice piece of advice that Baba Cesare gave to me as well. He says, don't try to save the world. Save yourself. Save your soul. The world is God's job. Saving the world is his job.
Okay, our job is save ourselves.
To save ourselves, which doesn't mean I'm safe on my boat and you're dying. It means to save your soul, to become yourself, right? To do your path. So I think we have to focus first of all in taking care of ourselves before we focus on saving the world, because it's just too difficult for us.
Is it a little bit egoistic idea, or
who knows?
Is it a different kind of egoism? Maybe maximum level of egoism can give you some kind of understanding to what you are not alone. There are a lot of people around you who...
I think if somebody's drowning in the water, you have to know how to swim if you want to help them.
Yeah.
So first you better know how to swim, because otherwise you can't help anyone. I've seen many people try to help others and they themselves are broken, and then they collapse and then they can't help anymore. So you have to
be strong.
Remain strong. Yeah, you have to be strong.
But to be strong means in this way, I think it's make to be good practitioner, because strongest is power. It comes from, everybody has different idea, but usually it's kind of devotion inside or outside of you. So probably, I don't know, but if you can in few words say what is for you your devotion, not without details, I don't ask you any details, but because I know you don't like so much external rituals.
Right.
This is only, yes, it's only like for people, some people do it and you can participate, but it's, I feel it's not your way.
Right.
What is your way in this path?
It's pretty simple. I mean, I often wake up in the morning and sit here or there, and just be in nature. Be here with these mountains and the sky and the sun and the moon and the stars and the animals. If you sit quietly, then the fireflies will come in a few weeks, and then if you sit quiet, they even come to you. You don't have to go to them, they come to you, and the butterflies, and then you get to know the birds. And I talk to the crows who sit on the tops of the trees over there, and I go, ah, 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 and then they reply, and you just becoming part of the world around you. But I've recently, not recently, it's been a while now, but I only identify the divinity with nature, with nothing else. Anything human and any image of a person or any religion, it's already one side or another, whereas nature is the same for everybody and the sun is the same for everybody. If you identify a god with a person or with a place, other people are going to disagree because they have another person and another place which they say is sacred. So it's immediately going to cause conflict. If you identify divinity with the sun is the same for everybody, and so everybody can get the same idea. And the same for nature. So for me, I try to not have almost any ritual. I mean, because I learned to take this other path from these Babas in India, in the end I spent a lot of time with them, right? After I got to know them, I started to go around with them, I started to meet the Indian Babas, they took me through the mountains on pilgrimages, then I took my shoes off, then I took my bag off, then I started to go with almost nothing. I'd go without passport and without money, just going like that, which was impossible for me to do, but in the end I saw they can do it, so I can do it too, and we would do this, and I loved it. I loved to go around without anything. This idea of providence and just you and the divinity, and things work by themselves, right? So we would go by villages and just say hello to the people, and if they like you, they'll give you food and they'll make you sleep. And if they think you're an idiot, they'll just ignore you. And so if they ignore you, you don't eat that day. So it was this interesting thing of walking without having anything, which I was fascinated by because I'd heard about it, and our saints probably did this in the Middle Ages, but we don't do this anymore. And in India, they're still doing this. They're still living that life. They're not like wearing sandals to show that they're poor, like, like the monks. They have all their uniforms that are brown and they look like poor, but they're not actually pieces of cloth picked up on the side of the road. Whereas in India, they're still dressed like with nothing. They have no shoes, and nothing means nothing. They have no money. Some people go around naked. I met men Babas, who were going around naked, just to show that you don't need anything. God will provide everything. And that was great to see people like that, just to see them, not to hear the stories.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
The Darshanamurti.
Yeah, Darshanamurti.
Just to see
how
person,
somebody lives.
Some divinity is inside some person. You just say, this is a God.
It's like, oh, okay,
I
wow.
need
Everybody
like
else is trying to have a Mercedes and you're naked and you like to be like that and you're happy like that, right? So you go, okay, that's fine. We understand each other. I can't do what you do, but I admire that direction.
You're a family man. You have family, kids. But do you think it can be for you this way of life, sadhu way of life? It can be can you live like sadhu, or you just like meravigliato, like you are surprised of them, you like them, but this is not your lifestyle completely. So you cannot stay with them for a long time, maybe live your life with them for long. What do you think?
I think that's a question I've had for a long time. So I spent periods with them before, and I was thinking of becoming one of them before. I really thought maybe I'll become a sadhu. I thought, and there was a sadhu who gave me his temple. I am the owner of a temple in India, which I should run, but I don't. and I once stayed in a cave. I finally managed, slowly, over the years I learned to live by the river and wash in the river and cook on the fire and sleep in a cave. And I learned slowly, I'm not very, but good enough. I found a cave and I stayed in the cave, and I thought maybe I can stay here. And the funny thing is that after a few days that I was staying in this cave, it was a cave in the Himalayas where a long time before, one of these Indian saints had lived. And so after a few days, some Indians came, they crossed the jungle and they came to the cave because they'd seen the fire, they'd seen the smoke. And I was very afraid because I thought, I took the cave of their saint, this is a little bit embarrassing, what's going to happen, they probably don't want me. And they said, oh, how happy we are that somebody has come to live here. If you need anything, we will bring you food every day. I was amazed. I love these people. I love them so much, their kindness, their respect, their belief that I was not an idiot and that I was trying to do something helped me not be an idiot, but I still couldn't do it. Even though they were trying to support me, they wanted me to take that cave. They wanted somebody to live like that. They were going to support that. And I was amazed by them, and I thought, well, you guys are probably much more advanced than I am. I don't think I can stay in this cave. I can't do it yet. And so I thanked them very much, and the next day I left. And
I think here in Europe, in Italy, all around this Europe, even in Russia, it was the same situation. Many holy men who was lived like eremiti,
Absolutely.
Even here there is a house of eremit, and we stay in another small city, and there is place of eremit. But nobody now inside. But 100 years ago, 200, 300 years ago, it was normal practice for monks or for holy men, people like sadhus, who was just traveling. After they stop somewhere, I think they do fire too, because no electricity 300 years ago.
You need a fire. Fire is you need to take your shoes off and you need to make a fire. A fire is basic. Fire is the beginning. You can't live without a fire. It keeps you warm. When I moved into that cave, you have to do a few things if you're going to live in a cave. And the first thing you have to do is make a very, very big fire with a lot of smoke, so that all the spiders and the insects get out of the cave, because you can't go in a cave that's been closed for 20 years and hope to sleep there. It's not a good idea.
Snakes and
so you have to know how to use fire. Fire is one of the most important things to know. But it's a good thing. The other day I was at a very big church in Florence, and I was talking to the director of the church, who was explaining to me that the problem is that they have 100,000 visitors a year, and these visitors just come like sheep. They take pictures, they go around like this, and then they leave. But that's not the point of the church. So how are they going to make them feel something and understand where they are? And I said, simple. You get one of the monks from the church to sit outside and live like a monk, and when the people come like this, they see this guy and they go, oh, how? And if they're interested, they can talk to him and they can see how he lives, and that's the thing. He says, no, but we can't do that because none of the monks live like that anymore. Well, that's the problem, right? So the simple solution is you have the monks do that again, because then people will be curious, because they'll see somebody living in a particular way and they'll ask that person who's living it what it's like to live that life. And it's the same. I close to another place in Florence, there's some beautiful caves, exactly what you said, beautiful caves. They're closed with a lock. I wanted to open one with a friend. We're thinking of opening it, not to break it, not to disturb it, but to clean it, to take care of it, because it's such a beautiful and special place where in the 1400s, there was a Italian saint was living there, right? But now there should be another person living there. It doesn't have to be a saint. It has to be somebody who wants to be a saint, somebody who wants to take that road, who wants to try. And all you have to do is start with a fire, make a very nice fire, then clean it perfectly. Clean it with all your love and devotion. Every corner of the place you clean it, and then you have water and fire, and you sit down and see what happens. And surely, in a little bit, people will come and visit you, and when they realize that you don't go to the supermarket, they might bring you food if what you say is interesting. And that's how it works in India. So I've seen that in India, and I think now what would be really much more interesting is if we all did this in our own homes, in our own cities, in our own countries. There's no need to go to India anymore. We're under the same sky, we have the same sun, the same moon. We don't need to go there and do it. We have such beautiful, look at the mountains here, it's totally perfect. We don't need to go. The Himalayas are probably more destroyed than it is here. There's lots of animals all around here. The beauty is everywhere. So the useful thing about India sometimes is to meet these people and to see how they live. And then you get the idea. But it's better that we come back and bring the idea home than if we keep doing it in India.
But you know, in Italy, it's very dangerous to make fire because it's prohibited.
Yeah.
You cannot sit in any cave because somebody called carabinieri.
It's true. It's true. It's true. There's a lot of rules and laws and problems. And it's true. It's true. There's always a way to do things, but
But Cesare was trying to do. He was lifted in the square of Turin.
There's always life has always got a complication to it.
Yeah.
But I think slowly, if we like, we'll try. I mean, at a certain point, you haven't got a choice. I mean, right? Look at today, right? The cherry trees are flowering. They're white on top. It's one of the first days. It's probably the second day of real spring that we're feeling. It's so beautiful. Where do I want to be? Inside or outside? I want to be here. And how do I want to be? Do I want to have like big boots to protect myself from this horrible nature, or do I just want to go barefoot and simple? So it's just how we want to live. There's nothing special about it. It's just nice to be here. It's perfect weather, and more and more you fall in love with this nature. I fall in love with it. I love it even when it rains. I love the winters. I love when it's cold. I like the nighttime. I like to walk at night in the forests. I like to walk when it's nighttime and raining in the forests, and just going towards her, not away from her.
So this is your practice.
That's my
your
practice.
religion.
Just nature.
Being connection.
Being in connection with nature. And it was such a revelation to me to understand that the way to do it is not, you don't need a ski pass. You don't need a suit. You don't need skis. You don't need boots. You don't need anything. You don't need to have anything more. You have to have less. You have to get rid of what you have. And then the journey becomes interesting, because that mountain over there, if you want to walk there with your boots and everything, it's actually quite simple to get there. But if you want to go there barefoot, it's already much more interesting. And if you want to go there barefoot at night, it's more interesting. And if you want to go there when it's snowing barefoot, it's even more interesting. So you can have very difficult and interesting adventures without traveling across the world, right here, by taking something off and making it more difficult for you to go up that mountain.
Can I come back a little bit to Cesare, because
Yeah.
Actually this book was translated in Russian, and we did an audio version, no? So who was Cesare for you? Just a friend, or maybe one of your guru, or real holy man? How do you what is he for you?
I liked him a lot. I liked him. I thought I'd never met a man like that. I was afraid of him at the beginning, because I realized that he had a strange life. He was living in a cave in India, and he didn't have a passport. And when I understood he didn't have a passport, I thought that means he had some trouble with the law. And it turned out he had been in prison many, many times. He'd never done anything bad. He had smoked, or he had he didn't have a visa, you know. And he said it's not in the 10 Commandments that you have to have a passport, right? His morality was not. He didn't follow the rules very much, and so. But he didn't do anything wrong. But he was often spent many time in jail, and he had seen the worst of life. He had become he was a junkie as a young man. He was in the 70s, in those movements of hippies that came from Europe and crossed to Nepal and India. And you know, in the 70s there was this incredible rebellion of the young people against rigid society and materialism. And they would say, "Stop the world, I want to get off. I don't want to be part of this anymore." But thousands of young people were part of this movement. And they would take these magic buses and cross from Afghanistan and Pakistan and go into India, and without any money. I mean, they were fun, they were crazy, but they were living life deeply. They were inspired by books like Siddhartha and looking for that thing in the East. And Cesare was one of these young guys who took off from Italy and went to look for something new. But the difference was that whereas all these people went to India and had great experiences or not, and then went back home and got a job, Cesare never came back. He found himself a cave and stayed there forever. So he went all the way. And it was I love to hear his stories because I could relate to them. If you talk to somebody, an Indian sadhu, maybe it's more difficult for you to understand his story, but I could understand this guy. And he said, we went to India and we were hippies and we let our hair grow and we went barefoot and we were smoking and, you know, we thought we were great, but we didn't know what we were doing. And then I met the Indian sadhus. He describes how he met them for the first time under a huge banyan tree in Goa. And he met these ascetics, and these babas had longer hair than he had. They smoked more than he smoked, and they had nothing at all. And he said, ooh, they know what I'm trying to do much better than all the hippies. They have that knowledge because they've been doing it for thousands of years. The hippies had just started. They had this idea of leaving the world and doing something different. The Babas had already left the world thousands of years ago and were continuing that tradition, so they really knew how to do it. So at that point, Cesare stopped being a hippie and went to follow the sadhus.
Yeah, but for you, how you feel him?
How do I feel him?
Maybe just a friend, you know, just good friend, like maybe...
No, he wasn't just a friend. He was the first person who when he talked, I could understand.
But did he teach you something?
He thought about the universe. He didn't think about making money and everyday things. We would sit here and do nothing and just watch like a hawk going round in the sky. He showed me how you can just sit here 24 hours and you don't need anything because I have water in that pot and I have fire here and I have earth here. He once sat here and he grabbed earth from here, like grabbing this earth, normal, and then he brought the water and he made something and he put it inside the fire, and in the evening I had a sculpture of a cobra, which he made without moving from where he was sitting. A beautiful sculpture of a cobra.
He was an artist. He was an extremely good artist.
He was an artist, but who cares about the cobra? What was interesting was his knowledge of nature, his knowledge of fire, his knowledge of water, his knowledge of land, his knowledge of air. And he knew that. And he could sit and he could understand what was going on. And I'd never met a guy like that before. And it was great. It was just like, I want to learn. I want to learn. And so I guess he wasn't just a friend. He was 20 years older than me and he had lived much more than me. So I definitely, even though he was a poor beggar who lived in a cave, I treated him with respect.
Everybody treated you, many people, not everybody, but even your friends, our friends from embassy, you know, they treat him every time like a king.
Yeah.
With big respect, no? So because they feel something. People who can
Yeah,
feel,
yeah.
they feel, they understand.
You feel something.
So this is a real quality of holy man. This is a difference between
Yeah,
one who
maybe, yeah.
I can say I'm sadhu because why? Because I don't know. I smoke ganja. I go around. I have jata.
Yeah.
I can speak very well.
It's
different
not
stories.
that, yeah. You're right,
But
it's not
enough.
that, it's not that.
enough.
No, it's not enough.
Some knowledge need. No, this is how to make
You have
cobra from
knowledge, yeah.
no moving, and you get one sculpture from nothing. no?
Yeah.
This is a practical knowledge, and this is real knowledge of sadhu, because sadhu
It's
don't
knowledge
read
of
books.
simplicity.
Most of them can't even read
No,
and write.
There's no need to read and write. It's the knowledge of the basic elements of the world again, going back to the basics.
If you know how to put together these
Yeah.
elements, you can do anything.
And
This is
the other
example.
thing that I loved about him was that he did things with devotion, with love. Not just doing things to do them, but carefully in the morning, making everything beautiful, putting the little flowers in their place, with nothing, so much beauty. Just little flowers that are growing around here. Just mud, but well made. The fire was well made. The flowers were well
Everything
placed.
not well made, it's perfect.
Perfect. Everything was beautiful.
Everything he does,
Beautiful.
thanks to you, I was meet him.
Yeah.
And because you insist, you say go and meet him. So
Yeah.
I go here in Tuscany. And what I remember, his hands, very
Yeah,
long fingers,
Oh.
like chirurg, like
yeah.
medico, no?
Yeah.
It's
Like a doctor.
Like
Yeah,
a
like a
doctor.
surgeon. Yeah, yeah. His
Surgeon,
hands
yes.
were. Even how he sat, how he spoke, how he didn't talk about politics. He always talked about God. If he talked, but it was always made you look at something else
with big
with lots of
spicy
lots of spice and lots of humor and
yes.
simplicity, and it was always funny, and he had a good way of expressing himself. Yeah. So I was very when he was here, I was happy. I liked to be with him. I liked to go. I liked to see cook on the fire that you had made, not use anything, collect things around, spend a whole day here, sit without moving, and just seeing the beauty of the world around us. I hadn't done that before. I was always doing something and just being there. And so his life was like 7 lives put together. I mean, he had so many things happen.
very intensive. life.
Very intense. And it's also a very interesting lesson, because I think every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. And it was strange for me at the beginning to think how wrong he had started his path, how wrong the way he had lived. I didn't like how he had been as a young man when he told me. He made many mistakes, and it was through his mistakes that he understood life more deeply. So what to do? Should we make mistakes? I don't know. But I've definitely noticed that people who make mistakes and are able to see that they've made mistakes understand more deeply than others. And his had been a difficult life, full of things that are wrong that you want to criticize, you know. But as they say, the last will be the first. And he was the last. At some point he was the last. Imagine being an Italian junkie with heroin in India, like all thin, and your mind is gone and you have no more money and you live in some horrible place. You're close to the end and your life is not going anywhere. And then suddenly it changed, and he became that person who was completely in control of himself.
That's why I think this book have very big power to help people in some similar or any kind of difficult situation in their life, because I was fall in love in this book because it was first book what I read in Italian without vocabulary and in only 5 days record total. After, when I translate, I ask your permission and benedizione of Cesare, no? Blessing of Cesare before he dying. So I think this book have something special. So now so it happens. No, like, I don't want to tell be produced. It's happened. Happened audiobook in Italian. Happened audiobook in Russian. Happened audio theater event, night event with Elio Germano. He reads this book. So, what do you think that could be? Because when you speak about him, when I read the book and when you speak again, no, I'm like a photographer, but I see some movie. Even when you spoke about how you meet his first time, it's like scenario. No, you read it,
Yeah.
you're inside this image, this movie. No, he'll answer to you, Italia.
Yeah. No, it's great also that we're speaking here, and this is exactly the place that he made here. You know, we learned a lot from him. But yeah, I mean, obviously we would. I've always imagined it as a movie, as a film. I think it would be. I would love to see that film. I would love to see that story of a normal young person who makes many mistakes, more mistakes than everybody else, and through his mistakes begins to understand and to learn. In prison, he learns to speak the language of India, and once he knows the language of India, he can go to the temples. And because he's the last of the last, he has to go to the temples because they're the only places where he can sleep and they will give him food. So he goes to the temples for the wrong reason, so that they will give him food, and then he starts to learn from them while he's there. And I have to say, by the end, I thought I liked him better than many Indian sadhus. He was beyond a religion. He didn't follow any Hinduism or Buddhism or Christian. It was just divinity, simplicity. He says, my path went through India. I learned from India. I learned from the Indian sadhus. But God is not Indian or Russian or Italian or anything else. So I like that openness in him.
Okay, I could make a lot of more questions, but I feel it's maybe enough for today. Can I make one last question?
Yeah.
Because already you speak maybe 2 hours and...
No, I'm fine.
No, it's very interesting, and I like what you say, because I feel when you speak, I know this because I saw you in different situations speak with public. You use your heart to speak with. When you speak from your heart. It's not everybody do this, no.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
So no, I think maybe this qualities come from maybe genetically from your father, because he also was a person who can, when he speaks something, people listen. So the last question is, what is your advice for young people of nowadays?
I like young people. They're the only people I like to talk to nowadays. I think it's fun because if you speak to older people, they already have their ideas clear and it's difficult for them to change their life. Whereas a young person can really take a different direction. And going in a direction like this, which is, towards simplicity, is difficult to do, but a young person can do it and can do it very well. What should they do? I mean, traveling is interesting. Traveling for a while. I think it's important to come back to our countries then, to bring back what we've learned. But traveling can definitely open, they talk about 3D movies, but this is like 4D movie. You're in it. When you're in life, it's even more interesting than seeing a film. So it's a good way to start. I traveled a lot and it was useful to go and see different places. I went to see the Amazon. I went, just to see what's in this world. We're born here and let's see what's going on in different places. But I think they have to stay calm know that everything's okay, not worry too much about politics, but follow their heart, because when you're young it's not a good idea to betray your ideals too early. You can make compromises later maybe, but at the beginning you should go your way, because you're born with a certain feeling inside of you and you should follow that feeling. You're born for a reason, you're not born just like that. And if you have that feeling, follow that feeling. And if you think the world is not exactly like you want to live in it, don't live in it like that. Do your own way. And if you want to see if there are other paths, there are other paths. And go and meet people who live them. And maybe you like them. Maybe you go that way, or maybe you don't. So they have to be calm and follow what they feel inside, not what other people tell them. Really strongly follow what you feel inside. And you have to know, of course, that when you follow what you feel inside at the beginning, it's going to be difficult. And everybody's going to say no. And then you just keep doing it and suddenly it works. You just keep going, because whenever you follow what you have inside, you'll do it well. Because it's your own thing. And if you do somebody else's thing, you won't do it well, however hard you try. So just follow your own thing. So that's what I would say to young people, and that it's a fun ride, especially if you're willing to try something different. That's what young people are for. They have to bring new ideas to humanity and in a new direction. We did that when we were young. Baba Cesare did that when he was young. And now they have to do that. It's clear that there's a need now to try different solutions, right? We keep going the way we're going, but we're not very convinced about it. Nobody really loves this future that's coming. So we're going to have a super technological future with ChatGPT and artificial intelligence and drones everywhere. And cool. I mean, technologically cool, but do we really think that's beautiful? Do any of us really want to live in that thing? You go, ooh. I mean, interesting, sure, but not that attractive. So if kids think that it's not that attractive, then go do something else. And we're with you.
So thank you very much, Folco. It's for your time and for your answers. I hope. I don't know. It's your first interview dedicated for Russian, but you do it in English. So maybe we leave one copy in English, and maybe more people can. Because I feel what you say. It's not superficial. It's very important. Somebody need to remember these things to young people, even to old people, but our life is so fragile, and what we are doing here really.
Yeah.
What is the idea? Why we are here? Everybody should to make this question sometimes. Sometimes he feel depressed or feel like lost. So what are you doing here? And maybe in this book, people can find the answer.
It's pretty strong, yeah. I hope so. I mean, everybody's going to find in different places, but it's good to know that there is some kind of an answer. That's important, because sometimes we think that there is nothing, that there is no way, that everything is useless. So it's very nice when sometimes in your life you meet someone or something that makes you think, oh, that's something I recognize, that's something I like, that is something that's beautiful, that makes me feel good. And that feeling, we have to always have it inside of us. We always have to see that there is a possibility and that there is beauty. And I find beauty in nature constantly. And it's really important to know that beauty every day. Wake up in the morning and say, oh, how beautiful. I woke, open the windows and I go, oh. So every morning I look at the mountains and I think, how beautiful, right?
Om Namo Narayana.
Yeah, Om Namo Narayana. You go, oh, at least the mountains are beautiful.
That I'm doing too every morning.
Right? In the morning, you go, oh.
Om Namo Narayana.
It's the best. Yesterday, my mom, I came here in the morning And then Mum was waking up late, so in the end I just woke her up and I said, come outside. And she came out and says, oh, it's so beautiful. And I was going to sleep another 2 hours. I said, no, that's the thing. You got to get up before dawn. That's the most beautiful time. Sometimes you just have to sit here. And this is the perfect place. Under this beautiful tree, you sit here and you wait for the sun to come. And you just sit, you just watch the miracle of light coming into the darkness. The darkness goes away, the light comes, and the angels start flying in the sky and singing. And they sing the arrival of this greatest being, of this light. And they sing, the light is coming, the light is coming. And every morning that happens. And it's such a wonderful spectacle to be part of. And if you wake up at 8:30, it's too late. Yeah. You miss that moment.
Chi dorme non piglia...
Non piglia pesci.
Non
Chi
piglia
dorme
pesci.
non piglia pesci. Yeah. And you don't get...
I just want to add last thing, because when this is a bitul, no, it's
yeah.
very
Russian tree.
It's I was asking who was plant this tree here. Who was the person? It's not come spontaneously
No.
because somebody should put
No,
it
my
here.
father put it here.
Your father.
My father, yeah.
But why he chose bitula, I don't know. Because I love so much this tree. We have forest in the Urals, no, in my place. So
I love
many-
this tree because it was very small and now it's making like a cave around the fire. You see here, the branches go all the way to the ground there and it's going to just cover this whole place and it's going to make a natural cave here in the middle of
Because your father
of-
was a very smart person, and when he has some connection with trees in this area, no?
Mhm.
He put eyes from Kali Mandir,
Yeah.
from Calcutta, no?
Yeah,
From some
yeah,
trees,
yeah.
saying what this is my spirit who looks outside for
That's
my
yeah.
people who for my family, for my kids.
Yeah, he
and-
put eyes on a tree and people love no, it seems like a crazy, you know, sometimes people make big institutions and build places and they try to get people to come and nobody's interested.
Yeah.
And he did nothing. He put 2 eyes on a tree and everybody's interested in that tree with eyes.
But it was eyes from the Murti of Kali Ma,
Yeah.
from
it was-
Calcutta temple. This is the
Maybe,
secret.
maybe.
This is
But it looks cool, that tree with those big eyes, and it looks like a wise old being, and it's such a simple thing, and kids love it because it
Yeah.
looks like it's going to talk to them. And he says it's important that they see the eyes so that they understand that the tree is also a living being, because eyes help you, make you think that it's living.
I think some trees in this area have eyes even if nobody put eyes.
I think so, you're right.
They feel,
Yeah.
I feel, I saw, because I know this forest, it's magical forest, and it's